Hi everyone, Brother Paul here. Thank you for joining us today. Today we're going to take the passage from 1 Samuel chapter 16, and the whole passage actually from verse 1 to 13. But I'm not going to go through all the whole passage to read them, just highlight a few verses so that we can move on to what I believe God wants to speak in our devotion today. So the background of this is again the quick background. We have King Saul, who is already the king, the anointed first king of Israel, and he has gone on his own. You know, God has anointed him as the king of Israel because Israel asked for a king. So Saul was the first king to be anointed, but then along the way, Saul decided that he wanted to do things his own way. Instead of listening to the voice of God, he decided that he did what was best for his kingship, for himself and his family to be the kings of Israel. Well, God had other idea, and Samuel was weeping and groaning about that. So here, 1 Samuel chapter 16, God told Samuel this. He said, "The Lord said to Samuel, how long will you mourn for Saul, since I have rejected him as king over Israel? Fill your horn with oil and be on your way, for I'm sending you to Jesse of Bethlehem. I have chosen one of his sons to be king." So here Samuel the prophet, the last judge of Israel, was told by God to fill up his horn with oil to anoint the next king. We drop down to verse 4, and in verse 4, Samuel did what the Lord said. When he arrived at Bethlehem, the elders of the town of Bethlehem trembled when they met him. They asked, "Do you come in peace?" And Samuel replied, "Yes, in peace," or in shalom. "I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. Consecrate yourself. Come to the sacrifice with me." And then he consecrated Jesse and his sons and invited them to the sacrifice. Now, if you read here, his sons, obviously David was not among those sons. Okay? When they arrived, verse 6, Samuel saw Eliab and thought, "Surely the Lord's anointed stands here before the Lord." But the Lord said to Samuel, "Do not consider his appearance or his height, for I have rejected him." The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. Here you find that Eliab is possibly the eldest, the firstborn of Jesse, and he must be of good looking, and he must be pretty tall. His appearance, like he's the eldest brother, etc. And he possibly looked like a good candidate outwardly, to Samuel, a good candidate to be king. Why would Samuel thought of it that way? Well, because when Saul was anointed, he was a head. The Bible says he was one head above all the rest of the Israelites. So Saul was tall and good looking as well. So Samuel says that if that was the Lord's choice before, then the Lord's choice must be somebody similar. So Eliab possibly met that criteria. But God says, "Do not consider his appearance or his height, for I have rejected him." The Lord does not look at things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but God looks at the heart. Drop down to verse 11. So Samuel sent for David, the hymn there for David, and had David brought in. David was glowing with health and had a fine appearance and handsome features. So Samuel took the horn. Then the Lord said, Rise, anoint him, for this is the one. So Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed David in the presence of his brothers. And from that day, the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon David, and Samuel went back to Ramah. Men look on the outside and on height. Sounds like requirement for a model. Sounds like a requirement for the top model of the world, you know. But God looks at your heart. You know, you may not look good on the outside. You may not have the height. You may not have the feature that is pleasant in the sight of man. But God looks at your heart, and God knows you, knows your heart better than yourself. You know, David was called by God himself to be a man after God's own heart. It wasn't David who asked for it. God told Samuel, I will find a man after my own heart. Now, we only know that throughout David's life, later on, when David desired to build the temple for God, that we know that he was really a man after God's own heart, because he went to bring back the Ark of the Covenant, the Ark of God, etc. So God knows you. God knows your life and my life far better than we can ever know. David had no idea what he was getting into when Samuel poured the oil over his head and anointed him in front of his family. David had no idea, because roughly the next 13 years, he ran from his life. He ran from the king, the current king of Israel. There was King Saul, and Saul wanted to kill David. I mean, many of us, sometimes when God touched you, anointed you, called you, you do not know what is ahead of you. We may only think of the glamorous side. We may only think about the great things that's going to happen in your life, through your life, to bring glory. But often, the dealing with the heart, the dealing with our inner self, is more important than how people look on the outside. You know, we can all become very excited when we start a new job, start a new business or a new ministry, and that is great. But along the way, whether we like it or not, we will face challenges. And sometimes in business or in ministry, you wonder, you know, is this all there is to it? You know, am I really called into this business? Am I really called into this ministry? Or, you know, am I just wasting my time? I'm quite sure that if you have done business or ministry for a certain extended period, you would have that question flitted through your mind every now and then. The assurance we have here is that if it's God who have called you, then it is God who will see you through. The Apostle Paul says that he's fully persuaded that he who have begun a good work in you, he, God, will complete it. It's not you, but it is God who will complete it for us. And the thing is this, the thing is that God is more interested in building us up than building that business up, than building that ministry up. God is really interested in building you up inwardly, you know. And once you know through the finished work of Jesus Christ who you are in Christ, you know, that righteousness, that state of righteousness, that eternal mindset that you are forever righteous in the sight of God, will actually set you up far better than what you can think or imagine. And God is therefore more interested in building us up than our business, than our ministry. He's more interested in your heart and in my heart than in your appearance and my appearance. You may look poor, you may look not pleasant in the eyes of others, but in the eyes of God, you are as beautiful as Christ Jesus. And Jesus is so beautifully glorious because he is forever righteous. You know, King David's life wasn't smooth. We know King David he fell, he sinned, he made several blunders in his life, and each time he does that, there's even a psalm that David wrote, take not thy Holy Spirit away from me. The difference between you and I with King David is that back in those days, before Jesus came and died, the Holy Spirit come on them, and the Holy Spirit leave them when they fall away. But we can never fall away, because the Holy Spirit did not come upon us. He came to live inside us. And the Bible gives us the assurance in Hebrews telling us that He will never leave us and never forsake us. So beloved, today, if you know that God has called you into something, call you into service, call you into ministry, do not let your heart be disheartened. Do not let your life be pushed astray or pushed aside or pulled away simply because of some area in our life that we do not seem to have victory over. But trust the Lord, because God is still working in you, still working in me. And God wants you and I to know this, that if He has anointed you for that job, if He has anointed you for that ministry, that business, then it is His responsibility to see it through. And the way He does it is not just to come on you, but to live inside you and I, so that He can work from the inside out. So today, my dear friends, just know this: if you take away all your skin color, you take away all your qualification, whether it's financial qualification, whether it's academic qualification, whatever qualification that you seek yourself and put yourself into, if you put that all away, what are you today? What do you actually look like? I'll tell you what you look like. You look like Jesus, because you're born again in Christ to be Christ-like. So the Lord bless you. The Lord keep you. The Lord make His face, the face of Jesus Christ, shine upon you, in you, through you. The Lord's goodness and His grace overshadow you. And everywhere you go, you bring the shalom peace of God. Because if God has called you, and because He has called you to be a child of God, then He will see you through this earth, and finally, until the day we see Jesus face to face. God bless you. In Jesus' name. Amen. Bye-bye.